Today is April 9th, 2010. 65 years ago, Dietrich Bonhoeffer was executed in a German concentration camp. His crime, among others, was being involved in a plot, an assassination attempt on the life of Adolf Hitler. Now, today that might be a popular position to take. People think, well, if I had some sort of time machine, I'd go back and be a part of this plot. But in his day, it wasn't too kosher among the general public. The public adored him. They adored their socialist leader. It was Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a committed Christian, who rallied against this man as one of the great evils in the world at that time. So, how does his devout Christianity factor in and him being a part of a murderous plot against an evil leader? Christians, where do we stand on vigilantism, which is taking government powers of execution into individuals' hands? Today I'm going to talk about that. Throughout history you have multiple examples of Christians, devout Christians, people who say they believe in God, read the Bible devoutly, who go and try to start rebellions, they try to assassinate people. Throughout history you have people like John Brown, for example, trying to lead the slave uprising against the South, trying to invoke a rebellion among the Southern slaves, trying to rally them to Harper's Ferry to get weapons and turn on their slave owners. Then you have more recent examples like Scott Roeder, who killed the abortionist George Tiller. Now, where are we going to sit on this? I mean, of course, George Tiller was a heinously evil person, confessing to the murder of over 60,000 babies. So does that make it right for us to take the law into our own hands and go commit these murders? Well, let's see what the Bible has to say about that. Avenger of Blood. Now this term is used several times in the Bible. It's used either Avenger of Blood or Revenger of Blood in the New King James Version of the Bible. But what this actually was usually a relative of someone who was killed, either an accidental death or a murder, and this Avenger of Blood would go out and seek the life of the person who ended the life of their relative. It was usually a relative. You didn't necessarily have to be a relative. There's no specification of that, just that there's someone avenging someone other person's blood. So how does the Old Testament treat this individual? I mean, here we go. We have this man seeking the life of another man, trying to take his life. I mean, this guy wasn't the government, this was an individual trying to perform these actions. The Bible actually encourages this activity. In Numbers 35:27, it talks about how when that Avenger of Blood finds that person and kills him, no blood is on the Avengers of Blood's hand. When you're doing a retribution killing, there's no blood on your hand. And elsewhere in Deuteronomy 19, for example, it talks about how the government will deliver people to the Avenger of Blood if during a trial that person is found guilty of intentional manslaughter or murder. So, does God command people to do immoral things? Well, no, that would make him an immoral God to do so. So God commanding people to deliver others into the Avenger of Blood's hand, that's not an immoral thing. It's not inherently immoral to do a revenge killing. So where does that put us then, as Christians? Are we obligated to go out and kill people as in revenge killing? Should we go kill the street thug who shoots the other street thug? Should we go around masquerading in the masks like all those superhero comic books? No, Christ paints us a different picture. Now, Christ lived during the time of the Roman occupation. Now, the Romans were exceedingly wicked, probably about as wicked as the United States in today's world. They'd do immoral things like persecuting other religions. For example, the Egyptian mystery religions were viciously persecuted before being accepted by the Roman state. Even the Bible records some of the Roman atrocities. It talks about the Galileans on the road with their sacrifices, and Pilate came and he killed them, and he intermingled the Jews in the blood of their sacrifices. This was the Roman government at work. The Roman government also executed John the Baptist, a holy and a righteous person. And what did Jesus do to all this? Did Jesus take up arms and try to assassinate people, kill people? No, Jesus lived in the world, just as Paul says that we're to live in the world, but not be part of the world. Now, murderers will always be with us, the unrighteous, the God-haters. They'll always exist in society, and they will always be the majority. Christians are not even able to function if we were to try to take all the roles and responsibilities of governments into our hands. In fact, not only would we not be able to function, but we'd ruin our own lives. I have children, you know, if I did anything like that, I would not only ruin my life, I'd ruin my wife's life, and I'd ruin my children's lives. We're not required to do that. There's no requirement on Christians to give up our own lives to perform the government's obligated duties. So the key points that I hope everyone's learned today is, number one, revenge killing is not immoral. It's not a sin. It shouldn't be looked upon as such. Two, we should live in the world. Our goal should be preaching Christ and Him crucified, not trying to take government responsibilities into our own hand. This doesn't mean that we shouldn't vote and try to influence leaders to the best of our ability, as long as it allows us to continue living in the world to spread Christ's message. But this means we don't go commit crimes for the sake of it. We're not obligated to, and we shouldn't. Three, people who do such things should be looked at more as under a civil disobedience lens. Someone who's engaging in a form of government protest against a corrupt government. They're not doing something immoral. They shouldn't be condemned. They should be seen as someone engaging in civil disobedience under the type described by Henry David Thoreau.